Morning, everybody. It's pouring down rain. My cats are being annoying, and well, we gotta make a video. So let's see. You might be interrupted by something. I don't know what's wrong with my cats. They got some sixth sense of something going on this morning, but they won't leave me alone. Anyway, we are going to finish up yesterday's topic of abolitionism and slavery. So, serious topic for the day. I'm going to go through some of the people you learned about through your readings yesterday. You're going to do some more readings, watch a couple quick videos today, and then answer some questions on these people involved with early attempts before the Civil War to end slavery. A lot of these people will be directly responsible in some ways for the Civil War happening in the first place, and then some other of them will go on to be major players within the Civil War itself as well. So I'm going to go through a few of these people. You read about them, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Then I want you to read a couple documents that connects them with the Civil War. Specifically Harriet Beecher Stowe, and a new guy we're going to talk about today, John Brown. You're going to be reading a little bit about and watch a couple videos on him too to see why they were important. So I am going to go through just a couple quick slides here. The important people that you learned about yesterday. You read about Frederick Douglass, who was Martin Luther King of his day before the Civil War. A former slave himself, someone who was very highly educated and rose through the ranks of the Northern society to become, a personal advisor even to Abraham Lincoln, who would be the president during the Civil War. William Lloyd Garrison, who was a white American, but one of the early leading abolitionists who formed many societies and really got the ball rolling with that. Harriet Beecher Stowe, you'll be reading a little bit more about her, or rather the impact of her novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and how that connects to America's changing ideals towards slavery, which would put them down the path, perhaps inevitably, towards a civil war. Harriet Tubman, we'll talk a little bit more about today because she warrants a little bit more of a discussion. Her actions are kind of crazy considering everything surrounding her at the time. And then John Brown, who we'll introduce today. I'm going to talk very briefly about him, and then you will watch a couple videos and do a reading on him. Now, I'm going to start with Harriet Tubman because of her involvement with the Underground Railroad. Now, the Underground Railroad is an amazing network of people. We don't exactly know how many people or who all was involved with it because it was kept so secret. We don't even know who founded it or when it was founded. We know it was founded some point within the early 19th century, so within 50 years or so prior to the Civil War, it was operating. It was taking enslaved people who were escaping from their owners and trying to flee north into free states, and then from there usually into Canada, into a free country where they could not be legally taken by their southern owners again. So the Underground Railroad was operating for a long time, saved thousands of people. Approximately 1,000 slaves per year ran away. Many of them did so with the help of the Underground Railroad. Now, despite its name, the Underground Railroad was neither underground nor a railroad. It existed kind of before the railroads were widespread, but also after as well. It was called a railroad because it was a method of transportation, taking people who were escaping and moving them from one place to another, from a dangerous place of bondage to a safer place of freedom, eventually usually Canada. Underground, not because it was underground, because it was kept secret. So it was away from the public eye. You had to know people within it to be helped by it. So in many ways, if you guys have learned about Anne Frank or any of the Jewish people who were in hiding during the Holocaust, who did not flee technically, but were in hiding from Nazi powers within their own countries, they used things like safe houses. They relied on friends to hide them. That's what a lot of the people did. It's very similar for a lot of the people in the Underground Railroad, although they also tried to move them and get them out of their slave states and out of the country in general to safety. A lot of people, again, were involved in the Underground Railroad, but the most famous of them would be Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman was, well, she's like a 5'3" point guard in the NBA who averages 25 points a game. She she had every disadvantage going for her. She's a former slave herself. As a slave, she was not educated, but she educated herself while attaining freedom. She ran away and decided, okay, it's not enough for me just to run away and get my freedom. I'm going to go back and I'm going to save other slaves. So she did this before the war when she was still pretty young. She saved approximately between 370 and 300 people from slavery, including her own parents, risking her life 13 times to go back into the Deep South and getting people out through the Underground Railroad network. During the war, and she would be a prominent member there. She armed up. She took she took basically a military role, even though it wasn't allowed for a woman to be in the military. And then she continued to fight and free slaves that way. Though it is important that before the war, even though she was risking her life, she was not necessarily a violent person. So like these other people, Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, and Harriet Beecher Stowe, Harriet Tubman was kind of practicing the idea of civil disobedience, breaking the law, but doing it in a way that was nonviolent, doing it because you knew it was morally right rather than legally right. So she did that, though she did establish a friendship and possibly help plan some of the escapades of our final major abolitionist we'll talk briefly about here, and that is John Brown. Now, John Brown was different from all of the other abolitionists we talked about because John Brown was violent. John Brown believed that the only way to affect change was through violence. He thought that he could inspire slaves through his actions to mount a slave rebellion that would eventually free themselves. Now, he's an interesting figure in American history. A lot of people have tried to say, oh, John Brown was crazy, or oh, John Brown was nothing more than a terrorist. In his own time, people in the South viewed him as a terrorist. People in the North viewed him as a hero, someone who was willing to risk it all, like Tubman, to free people who were wrongly enslaved. Everybody who's enslaved is wrongly enslaved, and John Brown knew that. Whether his actions went too far or not, that's up for your interpretation. I think he's a very interesting figure in American history. For a long time, he was taught to be a crazy madman who just tried to start a rebellion. But before that was being taught, people respected him. He had a lot of close friends. Thoreau himself spoke in his defense after he was caught, even though he did use violence. So John Brown was a respected man in his time, and the debate has kind of resurged. Was he a hero or was he a terrorist? I'm going to let you guys decide that by watching the videos and doing the reading about him. Okay, so I don't want to waste any more of your time this morning. Hopefully the readings in the videos are a little more self-explanatory on these things. But if you have questions, again, office hours 9 to 11, 2 to 3, just stop by and ask me. Okay, guys, have a great day. Follow the daily agenda as it is posted in the folder.